In the early 20th century, factory floors were spaces of rigid repetition. Workers followed fixed, mechanical steps for 10 hours a day, eventually entering a state of listless detachment from their surroundings. To find a way to increase efficiency, researchers at the Western Electric Hawthorne Works plant began measuring the precise output of workers assembling telephone relays. They wanted to see how changing the environment would impact the systems. Productivity surged when the researchers brightened the factory lights, but it increased again when they dimmed those same lights to the level of moonlight. The researchers concluded that the workers weren't reacting to the lighting at all. They were reacting to the novelty of being watched by people interested in their performance. Human attention acts as a behavioral nutrient. The mere awareness of observation changes our baseline state, forcing an immediate adaptation in physical output. This reaction is known as social facilitation. When another human enters your physical space, your prefrontal cortex activates to process social data, triggering a state of executive vigilance. Psychologist Robert Zajonc found that this state splits our performance into two paths: dominant responses for easy, well-practiced tasks, and non-dominant responses for tasks that are complex or entirely new. With a master task, an observer elevates your biological drive. Your performance spikes as energy redirects to the immediate action. If the task is difficult, that same drive creates anxiety. Performance crashes as the cost of managing the observer's gaze interferes with problem solving. External observation is a biological stressor. It forces the brain to monitor and adapt to the environment in real time, regardless of the task at hand. While the physical gaze of an observer can secure short-term compliance for simple labor, it is an unsustainable mechanism for the deep thinking required to solve complex problems. As the workplace transitioned from factory floors to office cubicles, the source of observation changed. The manager with the clipboard was replaced by our own peers. Open floor plans and grid-like desk alignments removed physical barriers. This spatial layout forces a state of constant peripheral observation, where every movement is visible to the rest of the group. To manage this, your brain uses schemas, internal mental blueprints built from your past experiences that dictate how you expect to be judged by the people around you. Confirmation bias then weaponizes these blueprints. You begin to selectively filter the room, noticing only the micro-expressions or sighs that validate your existing fears of being scrutinized. Social observation becomes a distorted internal narrative. We move through the day artificially magnifying the weight of being watched, even when no one is looking. This distortion is amplified by emotional vampires, individuals who demand constant, unreciprocated emotional labor from those around them. Their conversational narcissism forces your brain into a state of continuous monitoring. You are required to constantly validate their experience, leaving your own emotional needs unheard. In the broader workplace, this creates social evaluation threat. It is an ambient fear of professional judgment that keeps your nervous system in a state of high alert. Every time you overthink a social interaction, you expend metabolic energy. This radar shows how the rings of perceived social threats expand, while the cognitive capacity needed for your actual work shrinks. Eventually, the prefrontal cortex exhausts its fuel trying to process these hypothetical judgments. You are left with a feeling of heavy mental static. We leave the office feeling depleted, having spent the day performing for a phantom audience that may not even be paying attention. The observer has shrunk down and slipped into our pocket. It has transitioned into a digital feed that tracks every swipe we make. Passive features like the green active status dot or read receipts act as permanent digital proxies for human scrutiny, broadcasting our availability to the network at all times. Platforms exploit our social schemas to construct an algorithmic self. This is a version of our identity built entirely on the engagement metrics the machine can track. Constant digital observation has a high neurobiological cost. It leads to rapid cognitive overload, shorter attention spans, and diminished working memory capacity. This is a closed feedback loop. You produce data to satisfy the algorithm, and the algorithm uses that data to refine its tracking, pressuring you to produce even more. Digital observation forces us to produce infinite performance data for a machine that cannot offer genuine validation. The tool to reclaim our energy is metacognition, the conscious ability to think about our own thinking processes. Applying metacognition allows us to step outside our cognitive biases. We can recognize when our behavior is being driven by the perceived weight of external judgment. The oppressive sensation of being watched dissolves into internal self-awareness. You gain a level of clarity that allows you to focus on your own goals rather than the crowd's expectations. In a world of constant visibility, we have a choice. We can continue to perform for the metrics of the crowd, or we can exercise true agency. Psychological agency returns when the observer no longer dictates behavior, allowing us to authentically witness ourselves.